Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christina Bilowis, the current treasurer of the Women Lawyers Association of Michigan, and I am so honored to be here today as an introduction for the remarkable leaders, women presidents of the State Bar of Michigan, Part 2. Before we get started, I'm going to turn this program over to our moderator, Carolyn Sullivan. Carolyn is an experienced labor and employment and employee benefits attorney at Varnum. Her practices focus mostly on compliance with federal and state labor and employment laws and other workplace matters. She provides counsel on a wide range of matters, including discrimination, ADA compliance, sexual harassment, and wage hour issues, as well as employee benefit plans, including 401k plans and Section 125 cafeteria plans. Ms. Sullivan is on the board of directors for Habitat for Humanity Kent County and is the current president of the Young Lawyers section for the Grand Rapids Bar Association. It is my pleasure to turn this program over to Ms. Sullivan, who will introduce our esteemed speakers. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Christina. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming today. We are thrilled to have Nancy Diehl and Julie Fershtman here with us today. So I would love to introduce these wonderful women as we start our program. So we'll start with Nancy. Nancy Diehl served the people of the County of Wayne in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office with great distinction for 28 years, retiring in 2009 as Chief of the Trial Division, where she oversaw general trials, homicide, auto theft, major drugs, child and family abuse, and victim services. Nancy was the first sitting assistant prosecuting attorney to serve as the State Bar of Michigan president. She was also a pioneer in the specialization of child abuse and domestic violence prosecutions as founder and director of the Child Abuse Unit and the expanded Child and Family Abuse Bureau. Julie Fershtman is a shareholder with Foster Swift. She handles a broad range of civil matters, including business litigation, insurance coverage, contract disputes, agribusiness law, insurance defense, premises liability, sporting and recreational liability, construction law defects, business torts, real estate disputes, and much more. In addition, she is widely recognized as a national leader in the practice area of equine law. She is the fifth woman in the State Bar of Michigan's history to be elected its president and served from 2011 to 2012. She also served on the ABA House of Delegates and has served in several other leadership positions with the State Bar and the Oakland County Bar Association. And let me tell you, creating these introductions for these women was incredibly hard because trying to capture the just the breadth of experience and knowledge that they have was incredibly difficult. So there is so much more, and we are thrilled to have them here today. Welcome, both of you, and let's get started. My first question, and we'll start with Julie on this, what made you decide to become a lawyer?
I'll try to keep it brief. My father. My father was a lawyer, and of course, I grew up with the lawyer in the house at all hours of the night. Remember, this was back in the Stone Age of the early 60s and the mid 60s. But at night, the phone would ring nonstop. Clients were in jail. Their spouses kicked them out of the house. He had to be a comforting voice to people at a time of great difficulty. He was leaving at the house at all hours to go to jail to help clients out. Anybody who lived with that, as I did, would probably say, there is no way I want to be a lawyer. But that was my interest. That's what drove my interest, because I saw the difference he made and how he was this voice of reason and he helped people. And I saw how it made a difference. And I thought I'd like to be a part of that. His practice was criminal and divorce law primarily, but I made it very clear early in my practice, before I became a lawyer, I did not want to do that. But that was the reason I got involved in the profession. One other thing I will add, because it's a women lawyers event, he was a product of the 20s when he was born. He did not think women should be lawyers. And when I told him in high school, I was on the debate team, I even was a lead actor in a courtroom drama for the school play. I told him I wanted to be a lawyer. He absolutely thought it was wrong. Women shouldn't be lawyers. So it was against that and the headwind that it brought that I still continued. And fortunately, he lived to see that I was in law school and passed away when I was a first-year law student. But that was the reason.
That's an incredible story. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Julie. Nancy, how about you?
Would you want the long story or the shorter version?
Whatever version you can share with us, we will take.
All right. Well, let me say that I loved Perry Mason growing up. And those of you on this call obviously are much too young to have watched Perry Mason back in the 50s and 60s, but maybe you can watch it. You know, maybe after today you'll go and look it up on one of the streaming channels. But Perry Mason was the absolute masterful criminal defense attorney who always represented an innocent client and would cross-examine the witness until he got them to confess. And it was a very exciting show. And I thought, wow, would that be wonderful to be able to represent folks and have them acquitted during trial. So that was good. But more than I enjoyed that, I was a jock and I loved baseball. And of course, girls couldn't play, so I'd teach my brothers how to play. But I knew that I was going to go to college and get a phys ed degree and be a coach. Well, I had my career-ending injury in high school, my freshman year. So that dream of going forward in phys ed was stopped by the doctor, said I could never do that. So I said, well, what else? Perry Mason. And also, I couldn't tolerate bullies. Even as a young kid, I would stand up to bullies. And when I was in the 7th grade, we had a teacher who I would call a bully, which was very unusual. But I remember standing up finally after she was picking on one of the young students, as she always did. And I stood up and said, if you're going to pick on somebody, pick on me. And the whole rest of the year, she'd say, Diehl, is that okay with you? Diehl, are you agreeing with me now? And I'd, hey, go for it. So Perry Mason, no bullies, represent people. And that's what I started as a criminal defense attorney. We can get into later. That wasn't my career, but that's where I started, misdemeanor defender's office. I was going to be the next, well, it wouldn't be Perry Mason, but whatever. I was going to do it.
That's amazing. I love that. So Nancy, then what made you decide to run for state bar president?
Oh my goodness. That's an interesting question because you see, that was never on my agenda. Of course, it was very active with women lawyers and the Detroit Bar Association. And then I got active with the state bar representative. We had this group in Wayne County of women. We were sort of trying to plot things, to do things. And we figured we had to get with the state bar. So we were on the rep assembly together. And it was the year before Victoria Roberts was going to become president. And so members of the commission sit on the rep assembly. So Victoria asked me, she said, Nancy, would you run for the commission? I would really love to have you there during my presidential year. So I thought, well, what the heck? All right, I'll run. And I won. So now I'm on the commission and everything's good and seemed good. But just, I think right when I joined the commission, maybe it was the year after, the Supreme Court came down with a ruling that judges could be on the Board of Commissioners, but they could not hold officer positions. So the other women on the board before me, Wendy Potts from Oakland County was moving up to be president, but she could no longer do that. And it ended up, as I was there for a number of years, women could not get elected to the commission, basically, unless they were a judge. And the only other women on the commission came to there because they were on the state bar rep assembly leadership. So once you moved up to, the clerk and the vice chair and chair, the rep assembly, you get on there. But I was the only woman who was eligible on the board to run and to move up. And basically, it was our officers were not looking like the state bar of Michigan. They were not representing us. And so sort of it went to me. Now, Kim Cahill who was on the commission with me because she was at that time finally the chair of the assembly, should have been, but she couldn't do it because she had to run to try to get on the commission. Does this make sense? And it's only one seat where she lived. And the person who was there had been on there for years and was running again. So guess what? Nancy, you're it. So I said, all right, I'll do it for the cause. And I started moving up. Very unlike many people who have that on their, goal of what to do. But I'm so happy that it happened because the experience was just extraordinary, but nothing I had ever dreamed about.
Well, it sounds like leadership chose you and for good reason. That's great to hear. Julie, how about you? What made you decide to run for state bar president?
Well, in part, it's because so few women were state bar presidents. And I didn't realize it until shortly after becoming a member of the bar. I have been a lawyer since, okay, I'm old, 1986. And that is the first year we had a female state bar president. And as a young lawyer, opening up my issue, I get it on paper still, of the Bar Journal and seeing, not even opening it up, looking at the cover and seeing Julia Darlow's face right there on the cover, taking over the whole picture, the whole page, was eye-opening. I was involved as a college student in organizations, pre-law society, women's group. I was chair of both. Law school, I chaired the women law students group at Emory, where I went to law school. But never did I think a woman could be president of the State Bar of Michigan. So seeing that clearly showed that there are possibilities there. But then as I involved myself by attending bar association events at the local level, I noticed that the leaders of those organizations, at least my perception, tended to be the kind of leaders that I decided I didn't want to be like. They seemed cliquey. They seemed dismissive of people like me who didn't know anybody. They seemed to, at least from my observation, use their bar service to cozy up to certain people at certain levels. And maybe for some, that's a reason to involve themselves in the bar. But I decided from watching over the few years that the bar really should have somebody who listens, who knows that the people who are new to the organization should be welcomed, and who listens to the needs of the bar and tries to accommodate them. So it was with that in mind that I decided I wanted to be the change. I wanted to be the type of bar leader that I really wanted. And so I used that type of involvement through the years to get involved in the Representative Assembly, which is the policy-making body of the state bar. I became chair of it years ago, and other types of organizations, Oakland County Bar Association. I became an officer. And then the State Bar Board of Commissioners. As a member of the Young Lawyers section, which I was chair of years ago, I was entitled to serve on the Board of Commissioners that Nancy spoke about. What an amazing opportunity to see bar leaders in action and also to see presidents in action. And one thing that was a big catalyst for me is while serving on the Board of Commissioners of the State Bar, the leadership body where the president comes from, I was allowed to go to Mackinac Island one year. I was just a kid, a young lawyer, but I was chair or chair-elect at the time. And one of the perks of a presidency of the bar when they have been at Mackinac is they get the presidential suite. And it's not just to have a blast in for themselves, it's to invite people. And every night during the events on Mackinac, which would be at the time called the Upper Michigan Legal Institute, the president would host, or they were supposed to, a reception. People could mingle. There were snacks, drinks. However, here I was as a young lawyer, and at the time, whoever the state bar president was, and I won't tell you the name, but he would not allow just anybody to be in his suite. And I walked over to try to get in because I thought, wow, imagining the presidential suite at the Grand Hotel sure would be nice to take a look. And I saw people walking in, but I was told to get out of there. I was not even allowed in the door. because I didn't have an invitation. That was a catalyst for me because I thought this is not what the bar should be. It's a chance to exchange ideas, meet people, discuss how we can better benefit the profession, how we can serve the public. That to me is what the bar is all about, not shutting people out. So it encouraged me not just to become involved in the representative assembly and then have another term on the bar, but to run for the board of commissioners. And fortunately, I ran and I won, and I served with the hope that maybe I could run for president. And having people like Nancy Diehl and Kim Cahill as my mentors, who were very encouraging, helped make that possible. And one thing I'll conclude with before we get to the next question, when I became president of the bar, and when we had the presidential suite on Mackinac, I made everybody not only know that we had that suite and to come and hang out, I even brought out of my own home, I brought food that I purchased, and I had extra snacks. I brought premium wines, even better than the Mackinac wines. I wanted this to be a fun place. So that to me is part of leadership, which is to encourage this involvement and to think about the kind of personality you want to bring, and frankly, the kind of contributions you can make. And that was what got me involved and what made me decide to run.
May I respond, Carolyn?
Absolutely.
Julie, I am embarrassed on behalf of the State Bar of Michigan that you were booted out of that reception. I mean, even with all that I know about and when things go on, I that is hard for me to believe. But then I think it is timely to talk about the two-woman rule. What do you think, Julie?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, you see, I think I told you Kim Cahill could not run for the officer slot because she had to get elected. Well, she ended up beating that longtime incumbent and did come on the board. So, of course, Kim and I thought it only made sense that Kim follow me in the president's role. And that would be just wonderful. But what did the men say? Nancy, we can't have two women in a row. What would people think? And I thought, oh my goodness gracious. All right, enough said, because this is being recorded for posterity. And so I will leave it at that. Kim had to wait a year, but then she did. She was 2 behind me. We just sometimes, ladies, you just got to bide your time.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, both of you. It sounds like the common theme for you, Julie and Nancy, is that when you're told you can't do something, you're definitely going to get it done. So that's inspirational, and I appreciate that.
And it's true of practicing law too. It carries over.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that leads very well to the next question. What differences do you see in the challenges that women faced in the legal profession when you were president of the state bar versus the challenges you see women facing today?
Julie, why don't you go first, because you're much more still active with what's going on.
Okay. I'm not sure I can offer a direct, knowledgeable question, but I'd like to put it in perspective. When I was a law student in Atlanta, and that was in the mid 80s, my law school had a really unique class. It was the first class in the history of Emory Law School to have the greatest number of women, more than men, in the freshman class in law school. Interestingly, you will all appreciate that not only did we have the greatest number of women, we had the greatest statistics of any class in the history of Emory Law School, the highest LSATs and the highest GPAs. It was an encouraging sign when I started that women had unlimited possibilities. And that's where I started, even way before my presidency. And adding to that, I guess an interesting sign, the number of women in the profession way before I became a state bar president was much smaller than it is now. Just looking at a study that the ABA showed that in the 1980s, let's see, well, let's start with 2022, 38% of lawyers were female. And when I started law school, this is now mid 80s, 8% of lawyers, 8% was female. and I think also to Julia Darlow, our first president, imagine what her law school class was like when she started in the 70s. So that is a interesting development as to the number of women in the bar. But the question asked about challenges, and I guess I'll get to some of the negatives. We can call them challenges, but these are some negative observations. And first, that is, despite the increasing number of women in the profession, and the number continues to increase, I believe, although Ms. Billowis there probably has the stats way better than I do, women aren't ascending in the private practice arena within law firms. Taking you back to my year of presidency of the bar, 2011. I was 2011 to 2012. Only 20% of women, maybe even less, according to another study, of equity shareholders at firms were female. And that's exceptionally low. Unfortunately, last year, according to an ABA study, the number rose just a bit to 24%. 13 years and a 4% increase in the number of women acceding to equity shareholder status, even despite the increasing number of women in the profession. I guess we can call that a challenge. Why is it that women aren't becoming equity shareholders within law firms? By way of background, many of you know, becoming a shareholder is something that you can generally achieve. Most firms have two different tiers, sometimes more, of shareholdership. There's the income shareholder, there's the equity shareholder. The income shareholder rises by virtue of doing good work, having probably a good mentor at the firm, feeding the work to that shareholder if they don't have a practice, and showing some promise in terms of business development. The equity shareholders, typically, based on the typical criteria, are the shareholders who kick it up an extra notch. These are the shareholders who have a book of business. And I'm very honored to have developed, through a lot of marketing and a lot of great client relationships, I've developed a very sizable book of business. I'm an equity shareholder, but nationwide and in Michigan, women generally aren't. And frankly, not being an equity shareholder means a pay disparity. Equity shareholders earn more. They have a percentage ownership in the firm. They have greater income for that reason. Because their books of business are larger, naturally, they're going to earn more. So it creates a pay disparity when you don't have women getting to that level. Is it a glass ceiling? What's going on here? Is it that firms don't want to elevate women? No, my assessment, perhaps as a challenge, is it's extremely hard in today's world, especially for women. We tend to be the caregivers, to take care of our aging parents and also our children. I'm lucky to have a very, very accommodating and awesome husband. But if you're in the sandwich generation and you have people you're caring for, adding that extra component of caring for clients, working ridiculous hours, frankly, may not be an option. Is that a challenge that women can overcome? Maybe. We have technology now. We have our cell phones and we can do our work almost anywhere, but it continues to be a challenge. So I'd say one of the biggest, I guess not difference, but a challenge that has stayed with us is the difficulty of women to ascend to more meaningful, as I view it at least, to greater roles within law firms by virtue of equity shareholdership. One other challenge I'll say, and then I'll turn it over to Nancy. Incivility, that's a huge challenge. And as a young lawyer, especially with fewer women lawyers, a lot of men were using the usual language you hear, calling me honey, dear, demeaning words. And I used it as my advantage as I talked to opposing counsel and, let them do the talking and the mansplaining. And then I'd show up for a deposition and be ultra prepared. They weren't ready for that. They thought I was just a ditz. You may think so too. And it surprised them that I had that degree of preparation. But I'm seeing a greater amount of incivility now, and that may be a good topic for WLAM to address in the future, because it is a challenge, and I think women are still hitting the brunt of it because of, in my experience, male lawyers.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, that's great insight. Nancy, do you have anything else to add to that?
Well, just say it's a shame, apparently, that men haven't learned anything over all these years. When I started practicing in 1978, especially when I actually did civil work for a couple years, and I'd go to those depositions, and they thought they could intimidate me by getting in my face or yelling at me. They didn't know Nancy Diehl at all. So I agree absolutely, Julie. When you always should be the most prepared person in any case at a deposition or in court. I will agree that women were less likely to advance in the prosecutor's office. That's where my career was, because they'd get pregnant and then they would go on leave and then nobody would be there to replace them. So whatever unit or division had that woman at the time of her maternity leave, they would be shorthanded. And we were always short-staffed in the office. So nobody wanted to be stuck with the pregnant woman. In fact, regrettably, I heard after I left, one of the chiefs, in fact, knew that his staff member was pregnant, but traded her to another unit, extolling her virtues without, of course, disclosing that she was pregnant and shortly to be on leave. So there you go. And then that's hard. Some women did it better because they transferred to the appellate unit, and they were better able to deal with that. And I know now working from home is help. But as Julie says, women tend to be the caregivers taking care of their kids or their aging parents.
Yeah, well, thank you both. Can you share some of your career goals leading up to your time as state bar president and your goals after you completed your term?
Wow, that's a lot. Well,
Yeah,
the
big question.
first career goal was getting into the prosecutor's office. That was not easy. And some of you might wonder why I wanted to be Perry Mason. Why am I moving to the prosecutor's office? That's because in my 2 years as a defense attorney, I learned where all the power was. It wasn't as an individual attorney representing one innocent person. It was over on the other side who was making the determination whether or not you even charge someone. And I didn't like how many of those prosecutors behaved like, they were everything. And anyways, it just did not appear to me that they upheld what should be the mission of a prosecutor to ensure that justice was done. So I finally got my opportunity for an interview with the prosecutor's office after 2 years at the city of Detroit. And I'm being interviewed by 5 old white men, but that's a little harsh because now I'm old, that same age, probably they were older. So, but anyways, at the time as a youngster, I viewed it, and all the women they hired, you had to go to the appeals division first, the appellate division, apparently. And I said, well, if you're going to send me there, I'm not coming. I've been doing trials. I'm not going to come. So if that's, well, won't you even go there for 6 months? I said, well, why would I come here? I'm doing trial work at the city of Detroit, so don't hire me. Well, anyways, I was that flippant, and I'm not recommending you all be that flippant, but I had a good job, and I wasn't even sure I wanted to leave it. So after I heard from one of the younger of the old white men later that they thought if I could speak to them in that manner, that I was ready, and I got hired and got put immediately into the courtroom. So, and then because I was, there were probably 3 women on staff at the time. Eventually, when it came my turn to do warrants, I got the child abuse cases and the domestic violence cases. And it was probably because I was new, but also because I was the woman. But after I had listened to some of these folks speak to certain witnesses, I was so happy that these cases came to me. And so then eventually I was asked by the prosecutor to head up the child abuse unit, prosecute felonies, people who were abusing children, sexually abusing, physically abusing children 12 and under. First such unit in the state of Michigan. And it was my goal, along with my partner in creativity, the first child advocate, to work as a team with the prosecutor to change the way the criminal justice system handled children. We wanted children, first off, to be able to tell what happened and then to be testify in court. And after dealing with children for quite a while, we learned that most of those kids came from homes where there was violence. So it expanded to domestic violence and then elder abuse, which ended up as the Child and Family Abuse Bureau, covering all of those things. So that was a big goal, to work with that, and managed to create protocols not only for the county, but statewide, and things used across our country and in other countries, materials and booklets that Linda and I put together for children. I'll stop there, and I will, let's get to the challenges after, so give Julie a chance to weigh in here before we get to after our bar presidency. How about that?
That sounds great. Thanks.
I'll start with before and after. Remember, when I was president of the bar, I was 50 years old. I was 25 years into a practice. And my first goal before becoming state bar president was I wanted to keep growing my practice, and it was a solo practice. I gave up on law firms after 7 years, and I hated them. Of course, I'm back at one now. Long story. But I wanted to grow the practice and become as good of a lawyer as I could with a book of business and working in matters that I found interesting. It wasn't easy because I did it myself in developing my practice, marketing, I'll get to in a moment. But one thing I want to share is that in growing my practice, of course, it takes time and effort, but I was able to choose the direction of the practice as a solo, which I frankly and candidly and brutally, frankly, I should say, don't know if I could have done if I were at this law firm or any law firm at the time. I'm not trying to suggest to anybody listening to this that law firms don't want women to move up the ranks and get involved in bars. They encourage it. But to be able to get to the point of becoming a credible candidate for a state bar presidency, you've got to earn your stripes. You have to show people that they can rely on you. You do what you say. You have to accomplish things by working hard. It's not all about you. There's no pageantry. It's work. And when you're trying to bill hours to meet the goals set by you from a law firm, that's pretty tough. You better have a really good support system at home. Again, my husband was great, but I was a solo up to that point with my own practice and a full-time secretary. I could choose to do whatever I wanted, move my schedule any way I wanted, and make it happen. So growing my solo practice was a big, big goal leading up to that point. Also, a big goal for me, which I hope a lot of you will follow me in, is to educate the public about the law. I was a believer, not just to let people know I'm here, send me business, but I believe that people should know their rights. So I was a big believer as a solo practitioner in writing articles. I've got over 425 published articles because I write so much, or I have written, and I turn a lot of them into books. I have 4 books, 2 that the ABA published. Educating the public about their rights and what the law holds to me is really important, mainly so people may not need lawyers. They'll know how to avoid legal disputes. That was a very important goal. And also to make bar association service relevant, as I've spoken about. That was another goal, and I tried to keep that with me. I'll jump in and talk about career goals after. Enter my final year after my presidency. The goals are pretty much there, but they're not as important. What becomes more important at this point is mentoring. As I told you, seeing Julia Darlow on the cover of the Bar Journal showed me that there were possibilities in the legal profession and in bar service. So now, as my service ends, I want to mentor. And WLAM, some of you may recall that I offered and ran a program and took it on the road through women lawyers and women bar associations to help women learn how to promote themselves online through social media for business development, for recognition within their firms. I took this program on the road, and I wanted to do that to develop mentoring relationships and help women succeed, whether or not they wanted to get involved in the bar. And that was a big career goal that I've followed. Other than that, the other career goal afterward is just try to get back to work, because bar association service, when you are dedicated, as you are, I'm sure, will take a lot of your time. So the other goal is get back to clients. Back to you, Nancy.
Well, I'll tell you, while I was president, I actually wrote a column about the problem with indigent defense representation. And after my bar year, I continued to go back to my roots as a defense attorney. And I was not happy over my years as a prosecutor to see some of the, well, let's just say, mediocre representation that I saw on the other side. And I didn't think it was fair. And so I started doing some things around that. I was the co-chair with Val Newman on the video recording interrogation task force, which resulted in legislation requiring those video recording confessions. I was the co-chair, again with Val, on the eyewitness identification task force, we found out eyewitness identification, #1 reason for wrongful convictions. And those identifications were not being done in the best manner. So we put together a whole new policy for law enforcement to follow. I worked hard on the wrongful conviction compensation legislation and got that passed. And finally, I worked hard on the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission legislation and represented the State Bar of Michigan on the first commission. I was appointed by the governor to represent the State Bar of Michigan. So I sort of switched sides, so to speak, but not really. Prosecutors are supposed to see that justice is done. And I believe that is when there's a fair playing field and that both sides have good representation. I hate to see it. Some of my prosecutor colleagues don't seem to believe in that, but that's in fact the rules of professional responsibility. I'm done lecturing.
I hope everyone can understand and sympathize with me now when I say how difficult it is to try to put either of these women into an introductory nutshell here. The accomplishments are just overflowing when you listen to them speak. So now I'd like to know, Nancy, what was your biggest challenge or accomplishment during your state bar presidency from your perspective?
Wow, can I give the fun ones? Can I give the fun? Okay. Well, one of the my fun challenges was explaining to some of the well, I think most the state bar presidents go out and about to various organizations speaking. And so I was speaking to Macomb County Bar Association and trying to explain to a couple of the older gentlemen that who I was. They thought I was either the court clerk, the court reporter, or the waitress. So I tried to explain that I was
Uh-oh,
the
Nancy
state
is
bar
locked.
president. But that bar, I should have known better. So that was my fun challenge, explaining who I was. And my fun accomplishment, real quick again, I mean, I have serious ones, but here's my fun accomplishment, which really is a big one. And I hope Marge will understand how important this is. I got the bar to increase the type size on the name tags. So you could actually, I did accomplish a bar president, and I list that as one of my top achievements. So there you go. If we have time for more, I'll continue, but I'm turning it over to Julie.
I will try to, can I jump in?
Yes.
Now, when you talk about biggest challenge, all right, Marge Bosenberry from the State Bar, stay silent here and you're already muted. I am probably the most unique person you'll ever speak to in bar leadership anywhere on the biggest challenge. As many of you know, 2 weeks into my presidency, I was sworn in September 15, 2011, and 2 weeks later, I kept a routine gynecological appointment, kept mainly because my mentor, Kim Cahill, died of cancer a couple of years before my presidency. And I often wonder if she kept her doctor appointments. And when I had that appointment scheduled 2 weeks after my presidency, I thought, maybe I should move it. I'm going to be too busy. Maybe I should cancel it. But I kept that appointment thinking of Kim, the state bar president who preceded me. And I owe my life to her because I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And it wasn't just any breast cancer. I got diagnosed stage 1 triple negative breast cancer, which is arguably the worst kind of breast cancer a woman can have because breast cancer has different types. There are different receptors. You could be estrogen positive, progesterone positive, HER2. But I was triple negative. I had no receptors. Arguably, I am immune to chemo. And years back, this was a sheer death sentence. And it was frightening 2 weeks in. And so my big challenge is when I not only learned that, but I learned that I have all these commitments and I have to undergo 4 rounds of chemo, a double mastectomy, reconstruction, and then later, I think it was still during the presidency, I learned I was BRCA positive, the Angelina Jolie thing where you have the genetic predisposition. They had to rip out my ovaries. I had to have all this stuff done. But keeping in mind that it took my career to get to that point, I wasn't feeling bad for myself. I was freaking pissed. how dare this happen on this time, on this watch? And if you want to think of the best motivator to get through cancer and get through chemo and treatments and all that, it is a state bar presidency, because I didn't want this to slow me down. And I showed up for just about everything. Even ABA, the mid-year meeting was between chemos, and I was kind of weak at that point, but damn it, I didn't want to miss it. My oncologist said, yeah, sure, go. And I was showing up for events, and nobody knew that I was going through it. I didn't out myself until after my last chemo. I kept my hair because there's something I used called a cold cap. Happy to talk about it with anyone. So talk about challenge. That was a challenge, but I owe my getting through it and showing up for literally just about everything, except when I was hospitalized for a complication, to a great state bar staff, a tremendously powerful set of officers of the bar, mentors like, of course, like Nancy, and a great bar staff. Everything got done because of their support. So that was a huge challenge. Briefly on accomplishments, I was a big believer, as I've told you, in making the bar relevant, and in talking and meeting with people, I learned that the bar, people wanted the bar to do more for them. We have a mandatory bar, as you know. We don't just sign on to the state bar because we want to. We're members because we have to, and I've never forgotten that. And I've always taken it to heart. We have to treat ourselves like we're not just a mandatory bar, and we're taking dues, and we're having, as I've mentioned, pageantry. There is no such thing. The bar serves. And in listening to people, I learned that the best service that we can provide, given the large number of solo and small firm practitioners, is a resource center to help people. It already existed before my presidency, but I really helped encourage the bar and the staff to put it on steroids. It's still there, and it's called the Practice Management Resource Center. It has become strong. It has become even more broad in the services it provides. Also, during my presidency, I convened a caregiver work group. It was a division of the Diversity, Inclusion, and Inclusion Advisory Committee to think about ways to help offer ideas and resources for women who were caregivers and maybe had to leave the practice and return to the practice. They issued a report. Not sure where it went because it came out right around the end of my presidency. A couple of other quick things. Timing is everything for state bar presidencies. A lot of things just happened on my watch, and we see them now, like specialized docket courts, the business courts. All of this was emerging during my year, which is really awesome. And there was a lot that the bar could do to help encourage it and call attention to it. And then, of course, I did a presidential blog. SBM Pres, P-R-E-S, 2012.com. I wanted to document where I was and what I was doing as much as possible. And one of the side effects of chemo was insomnia. I just couldn't sleep. And so it was a great opportunity. I viewed everything as a positive, and I was writing blog posts and putting them up because if I'm not sleeping, may as well write my blog post and president's page. So those were accomplishments. And overall, it was a really great year.
That sounds like an incredibly eventful year. I mean, wow, that's
I don't think anyone's going to beat Julie. No, I don't think so. No, it won't even come close.
wow. So I'll ask one more question, and then I'd like to open it up to the group here. You can raise your hands or put something in the chat if you have any specific questions. But what advice do you have for women who are seeking to become leaders in the profession?
Well, I'm going to say first, join groups, join organizations, more than one. Obviously, you're going to join women lawyers. That's perfect. But get involved with some local, maybe your local bar association or sections of the state bar. So you have sort of a diverse group that you're hanging around with a lot of different people. As a prosecutor, I had my prosecutor group, but I wanted to be involved with the state bar, with the Detroit bar, with various groups in the community. It's another important thing to sort of broaden my outlook on things. You know, you stay too much with just one group and you get tunnel vision, and that's never good for anyone. So I say do that, and then put your time in, you know, pay attention. And Julie mentioned this earlier, but this was, I think, really important. You observe. Just like you observe a trial prosecutor or somebody taking a deposition, what you like and you don't like. When you observe leaders, you're observing what you like and what you don't like. And you take the good and throw away the not so good. And also, of course, it's about who you are as a person, because you're never going to be completely like anyone else. And why would you want to? But take the good and then go forward and lead by example. Lead by example. Julie.
Oh my gosh, that is a hard act to follow. I can honestly say what she said. But when we talk about advice for women who seek to become leaders, I'm glad that WLAM has brought past presidents to be part of this series. And also, so you have a chance to see Nancy Diehl and hear her, because it's watching people like her in action. I think that's empowering. It's encouraging. It's frankly energizing. But I guess I'd break it down to three pieces of advice for women who are considering leaders and becoming leaders in the profession. Advice number one, I've kind of mentioned this, but I'll just get right to it. Leadership is not all about you. It's about what you can do for others. It's about your focus on helping the profession. It's your focus on assisting in some way to educate or help the public. It's also about being, in that vein, a team player with others, and to be the type of team player that people want to work with. Who wouldn't want to work with someone like Nancy? She has a great sense of humor. She clearly has creativity and great ideas, and she is a leader by example. She's doing things. Who wouldn't want to be with somebody like that who listens, contributes, has integrity? She's not going to sign up to do something and then run away and you can't find her. Nancy will not only get the job done, she will exceed your expectations in any project or anything you ask her to do, at least in the bar front. I'm certain in the business front too, when you were a prosecutor and an attorney. But the point at number one is leadership is not all about you. Keep high standards and live up to them. Number two, seek out mentors. I could never, ever have become state bar president without people who were my mentors. Nancy was one of them. Kim Cahill, who I owe my life to, is another. Another mentor is another past state bar president, Al Butzbaugh. He's the kind of mentor, he passed away a few years ago, that would contact me and alert me to an opportunity. And this afternoon, I'll be at one of them. I'm vice president of the Michigan State Bar Foundation because Al contacted me and said, I have an opportunity that you would be suited for. And that was a couple decades ago. A good mentor is not only a listening ear, but gives you opportunities and helps you. So seek out mentors, even approach people if you must, and just ask, may I speak with you about some ideas? I heard you, I'd like to talk to you. And chances are, if the mentors that you're seeking out are past state bar presidents, they will all be there for you. I certainly will. Finally, pay it forward. I've been a lawyer for just about 38 years, and you will be too one day, you younger listeners. So remember that as you have spent your career achieving things, doing things, making a difference, remember people who are moving up, and pay it forward and help them. That would be the third and final piece of advice for women who want to be leaders.
Thank you both. That's excellent advice. I'd like to open it up to the group now. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves or put the question in the chat and I'll read it, whatever you'd be most comfortable with. And if not, I have more questions I can ask.
So
Zena?
Nancy, you talked about some of your achievements, but not the others. Do you want to continue?
No, dude, what?
Be so modest.
I mean, not really. If I'm not sure what you want me to talk about.
Well, you had said that there were some funny achievements.
Oh no!
But then you stopped.
Oh, wait, you mean about what the accomplishments or challenges were? Oh, no. Oh, okay. No, I thought I did tell you the funny part was that they thought that I was the wait staff or the court reporter and not the president. But in fact, so that was what was funny. And that wasn't the only spot that took place. Now, mind you, I was only the third female president. So, but I did not think I was dressed in cocktail attire at this bar function. I had come from work and I was in my, conservative prosecutor outfit. So I'm not sure what it was that confused them.
Well, feel free to chime in if there's anyone else who has a question, but oh, Peggy, it looks like you have your hand up.
It's not really a question. It's just something I was gonna put out there for Nancy and Julie. And about like running, if you will, or seeking an office in something like the state bar or even a local bar like the Detroit bar. It's really important that you plan for that and that you orchestrate that. That is something I think that's critical, and I don't know if it came through as clearly as maybe it could have. I know Nancy and Julie both referenced it, but let's say you're on the representative assembly and then you make it to the commission. You want to be president, you let that be known. Let people know that's what you want, or you know, in other words, make it so that you're setting yourself up for a position, because you can't really like at the last minute go, oh, I think I want to be president now, you know. It doesn't work. And so it's like anything else, there's always a little bit of politics involved in these organizations. And so just make sure like that you don't overlook opportunities if that's what you want, that you really plan for them and try to orchestrate them. Because like with the state bar, you may know this, but the membership doesn't elect the president. The membership elects the commission elects the president. And so you have a little bit of different sort of posturing and campaigning
Peggy,
that you kind of have to do.
to tell you,
Yes.
that's sort of funny because I was on the commission for a number of years before I had any clue how it all worked. Because all I knew, all of a sudden there would be these folks all saying who the slate was and how it was going to be. And I was not in the know at the time. I know now it's a little different, but back then it was all very secretive. And when I looked around and basically they came to me because I was the only woman eligible to move up to be president. Okay. I don't want anyone to think this was because of any great ability on my hat by, you know, because of me. Though I hopefully grew into my role, but I learned then the secret of it all. And then I was told I had to go and get support from other people. And then maybe it would happen. And so, as I said, it's all sort of very interesting about how this all works. And I understand it's a little different. It's a little differently now. But as I said earlier, the whole secret when Kim Cahill couldn't come up behind me, you know, that couldn't be. And it's not that way anymore because we have something really special coming in the next couple of years. Guess what? 2 women in a row. It couldn't happen back in my time, but it's happening soon. And I am so pleased that that is going to happen.
And they're both awesome. I know we have more questions. I did want to chime in and say, just because you're a woman and the bar leadership is, you know, trying to make the leadership look like the membership of the bar, doesn't mean they're going to back down for you. I had a 3-way race to become an officer of the bar, which was my way of moving up. And it was a tough race. And I will say it was the mentors whose names I've shared with you that helped me strategize to get through and win. And it was not an easy election. So just because you think they're going to support you on the board, because you are a female, is no assurance, and it's still possible. Go ahead.
No, and I had to call people. See, somehow some people have this all set apparently when you're supposed to do this. Remember, I was the only one who could do it. That's why I was never my goal to be state bar president. I mean, many people enter that's what they want. That's perfect. It just was not on my agenda. But when I found that out, then you see, it doesn't work for them because they want to move forward at a certain time. So I called a couple of folks for Julie when Julie was trying to do it. And I said, well, what is this about? Isn't this about the State Bar of Michigan? And shouldn't our bar be representative of our membership? Not because somebody thinks this is his year to be president. And that's how, if you know me, that's exactly how I put it to friends of mine, you know, colleagues. And thank goodness cooler and smarter heads prevailed, and Julie moved up.
Well, I think we have time for just one more question here. Jillian, it looks like you have your hand up, so you can go ahead.
I actually had kind of two questions, and one was, do either of you like regret it or feel that there was like too much responsibility or in any way like something that you wish you would have known in advance that you didn't know about being president?
I'll jump in first and then listen to Nancy. One of the benefits at the state bar level is that the state bar has a massive staff of people who are there to help you. Before you showed up during my presidency to a local bar in Algonac or in Kalamazoo, a member of the bar would give you information about the leadership, so you were informed, and they would provide any information you needed about, even not even how to get there, but about who the president was, background on the judges who were attending, and legislators. You would have enough information on that. In addition, the Bar Board of Commissioners has a massive amount of support from state bar staff in a variety of ways. It is that support that helps tremendously when you are a state bar president, because these are people whose jobs are to help you, and not just in promotion, but in carrying out a lot of the initiatives and the work that we do. So a lot of the local bars and smaller bars don't have that degree of backup and support, which is one of the pluses of the state bar. It's like a machine. There's so much available to you. We had 69 full-time staffers in the bar when I was president, and their job isn't just to support the president. They do a lot of things, but I hope it gives you an idea that you had that. Smaller bars, it's more on you. You're going to have to carry out a lot more work. It takes a lot more effort, but the rewards are huge. Nancy?
I'll have to agree with what Julie said, though. I'm impressed. When I was president, I didn't get all that information before I went to a local bar. And I remember giving a lot of advice to how things maybe could be a little bit better to make it a little easier on the president. But it didn't matter, and I wouldn't worry about anything. I'm telling you, it's nothing I had ever thought about. As I said, because I was in the right place at the wrong time, so to speak. I moved up the chairs to become president, but in retrospect, boy, it was such a blessing in my life and such a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to meet lawyers all over the state of Michigan. What a fantastic group of people you all are.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Julie. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. It is unfortunately time to end our program, but we appreciate the attendance. We appreciate Julie and Nancy's time and experience and willingness to share both their accomplishments and their challenges throughout their careers. So thank you all. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.